What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So I just decided to do another one of these videos where I kind of catch everybody up to speed on some of the films that I've seen lately. And this month of January, or I'd say last month of January, I saw a handful of films. Half of them were actually rewatches. Like I rewatched The Holy Mountain. Obviously, fantastic, 10 out of 10, masterfully bonkers ass piece of filmmaking. And then I also just rewatched recently Smoking Causes Coughing. I feel the exact same way about it the first time. Just such an amazing and oddly quirky and clever piece of filmmaking from Quentin Dupieux. Loved that. I also rewatched Inherent Vice. Still mid movie to me. I'm sorry. I know that Inherent Vice has its super fans out there. But for me personally, it's unfortunately a dud of a movie. I mean, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm a Paul Thomas Anderson super fan, but that film, um, is just I don't know. I just lose so much investment early on to the movie, and it just never does anything for me to get back on track. But I'm glad that people like it. It's just that movie is just apparently not for me. Um, but yeah, with that being said, let's just go ahead and start off by talking about the films that I have seen in the month of January that are brand new watches for me. So let's start this video off by talking about a film called 45 Years. 45 Years is a film directed by Andrew Haig, or Hay, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But this is the first film that I've seen from this director. Recently, he came out with a film called All of Us Strangers, which has Paul Mescal. I haven't seen that one yet, but I've heard really great things about it. Um, but 45 Years is a really great film. I really enjoyed this film and found it very impactful. It's a very quiet and subtle piece of filmmaking. But through its subtlety, it's able to speak volumes about its themes and its messages and the emotions of these characters, which are very complex and told in an incredibly mature way. This is an incredibly mature film overall. Um, it definitely, I don't really like saying this because I feel like in some ways can be a little dismissive of people's opinions, but I feel like this is a film that kind of requires you to have a mature understanding of the content. Um, and the reason why that is, and this might get a little spoilery, so if you don't want to listen to some of these thoughts that I'm about to say, just know that I recommend it and go watch it. But essentially, this is a film that expresses the tragedy of somebody secretly forcing their their life partner to live vicariously through a long lost partner that they had in the past. And as the film progresses, things about this, past loved one who he's no longer with gets revealed, and things start becoming a little bit more perverse about it, and makes it to where one of the partners can't even it, in a way it makes it feel like their entire marriage and their entire partnership feels inauthentic and just feels like a sham because of the fact that there was just this deep secret that was held, not only just held in a personal way, but was told through a way that actually directly impacted the other person. And I just think it's told in a way that is incredibly effective and again incredibly subtle. And I just love the way that this film withholds information from the audience and then in turn reveals things. And when it reveals them, you just really feel the impact in a much more compelling way because of how it paces the information and how slow moving and patient the film is overall with how the story develops and how these characters develop in their relationship and whatnot. And it's just really impactful. Like I just thought it was a really great movie. And especially by the end of it, again, a very subtle ending, but again, some people can definitely say that it's interpretive, but I do think like I have a pretty solid interpretation of what I think the filmmaker was saying about this character and her feelings about the entire situation, and it is very tragic. Like it does come off almost like a tragedy, um, and I just really liked it. I highly recommend people watch 45 Years. Um, I think it's a really impactful piece of filmmaking. So that's all I'll really say about 45 Years. If I had to give it a rating, I'd give it a I give it a solid to strong 8 out of 10. Highly recommend for sure. All right. Let's move on to let's move on to a film called The Oregonian, um, which is a film directed by, I think his name is Calvin Lee Reeder. I could be wrong, um, but this is a film that I watched for the early bird discussion in the Discord, and the early bird Monday discussions. They choose a lot of usually like batshit movies. Um, so I watched this one, and it is definitely a batshit movie. It's a very bold. It's an incredibly bold, avant-garde, low-budget piece of independent filmmaking. um, Basically, from start to finish, this film has such an audacious style and like form and just nonstop pieces of imagery and narrative formation that just feels so clunky and so disjointed and doesn't really feel cohesive. It's just like one thing leading to another that doesn't feel connected. Look, the biggest positive I can give this film is that it genuinely feels like a nightmare and like in the authentic sense. Um, I mean, in a lot of ways, when we throw around the word nightmare, we think of it in a more like conventional sense, like just low lighting, monsters in your closet, ghosts, like kind of like terror that is represented like in real life. It's just kind of transferred into your dreams. It's not really the case with this. The reason why I feel like this film represents like our actual genuine nightmare is because of the fact that it is chaotic and it is disjointed, and you are leaping from one thing to another in a way that doesn't feel all that sensible. Um, but if I were to dream this, I would be terrified from start to finish. Um, just because of the fact that again, you don't really make sense of a lot of it. It's just from one bizarre, unsettling thing to the next, without really understanding how anything makes sense. Um, I mean, like if I had to read into it, it's probably about the cyclical nature of trauma and child abuse and relationship abuse and all that shit. But in reality, I feel like this film just is an excuse to just experiment and just throw a bunch of shit at the audience and just see what lands and what doesn't. And look, even though I appreciate this film, it's hard for me not to appreciate bold, artistic ambitions like this film, especially on a really low budget. You can tell that this is a film that was made with a really low budget with a bunch of friends. I could be wrong, but this just looks like a movie that was made with a bunch of friends with like $0. And this is what, the filmmaker turned out. And I respect it a lot because of how different and artistic it is and how experimental it is. It's boundary pushing in a lot of ways in terms of content and in terms of form. But did I resonate with it really? No. Did I really enjoy my experience? Also, not really. Um, but it definitely left an impression on me. Um, it's definitely a movie that will stick with you for better or worse. It's gonna stick with you, and you're gonna remember it. And I I have to respect it and appreciate it for that. So I think that's all I'll really say about it. I don't even know if I could recommend this. I only recommend it if you just want to watch something different and you just want to watch something kind of crazy, and that's it. That's like the criteria right there. So um I'll, I'll I'll give the Oregonian a generous soft 6 out of 10. Again, just because of the fact that I can't help but appreciate what this film was going for and just its sheer ambition. So yeah, that's the Oregonian for you. Um, so yeah, that being said, let's just move on to the next film, which is a film that I really loved, which is a film called Chess of the Wind. Now, the backstory behind Chess of the Wind is kind of mind blowing. So, this is a film that was produced and released in Iran, and the Iranian Islamic regime banned it and just kind of like rocket shipped it into obscurity and made it to where like copies of the film were impossible to find. Like for the longest time, for decades, this film was just lost and it just ceased to exist. Um, and it wasn't until somebody stumbled upon it in an old antique shop and took the liberty of putting it in the right hands and giving it the proper restoration and re-release that it deserved, and now we have access to it. And let me tell you, it is pretty tragic that this film almost got wiped off the face of the earth, because it is a beautiful looking film that is, to me, masterfully crafted and contains, especially for the time and location that it came out in, pretty boundary pushing thematic material. Um, yeah, this film is Carlos core in a lot of ways, just because of the fact that the aesthetic presentation is what really absorbed me into this film. I mean, this film is just filled with beautifully framed shots. I mean, this entire film is basically beautifully framed. I can't even think of any frame of this film that I didn't think had thought poured into it. Um, I mean, filled with symmetrical shots, filled with shots that have just eye popping color palettes and lighting setups. Um, the direction of the camera, it just moves so delicately slow and purposeful throughout the film. And the musical score is also like, again, it has this very haunting and unsettling sound to it that, again, together with all the aesthetic work, the lighting, the direction, the camera work, the framing, and yes, the score, it all just works harmoniously together to craft an absorbing and immersive and haunting atmosphere and experience overall. And yeah, I just really love this film. And when watching it, I was immediately thinking that this had to have inspired other films in recent memory, like The Favorite and Parasite, because I feel like they have similar themes and also even like character and narrative goals. Um, because essentially, this film is about how easily the dollar can corrupt human beings. Money and power is something that any human being can fall weak for. And it just showcases that like in a really like pathetic way, that just showcases our weaknesses as human beings, but in a very truthful and frightening way in some points. So in the third act, I mean, the third act, it just builds up to something so. I did not expect the third act to deliver this much. I'll just say that the third act really delivers a lot narratively and thematically, um, and atmospherically as well. Like everything just comes together in such a cinematic and absorbing way in that third act. And it was kind of shocking. I did not expect it to go as far as it did, but it's really, really compelling and very impressive shit. I mean, It came out in 1974, I want to say, and just very impressive work overall. Very impressive work. I think the only way you can watch this is through the if you buy the Criterion Martin Scorsese World of Cinema box set. I forgot which one, but one of those box sets has this film. And honestly, I feel like I feel like Chest of the Wind deserves like an individual 4K release. It already has a 4K restoration. I think it just deserves its own independent release because to me, I really do think it is that great. I could see not everybody loving this film, obviously. But for me, like, I just got so much out of it. I found it very immersive and interesting. And I just love the way it went about expressing its atmosphere, expressing its messages. Just love the way it went about storytelling and structure. Beautifully framed film. It's a lot of what I would love in a film. And I just really, really, really enjoyed it. So yeah. With that being said, I'll give Chess of the Wind a soft 9 out of 10. Um, yeah, soft 9. I gave it a rating like last week, but again, it's one of those things where I kind of keep having to think about it because the more I think about it, the more things might change. But yeah, that's all I'm going to talk about, guys. I hope you guys really enjoy this video. I'm going to be reviewing Righting Wrongs tomorrow, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, if you haven't seen my top 10 most anticipated films of 2024, please watch that. If you haven't seen my top 10 best of 2023, please watch that, and also consider joining my Patreon so you can join the Discord server, which is a whole bunch of fun. It's just my life is so dedicated to it, and I don't regret it at all. It's been such an important staple of my life, and I've just been having a blast with it. And I think that other film lovers will also find a lot of enjoyment in it. So please consider doing that. But that's about it. If you really enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.